Here's an update. Yeah, I did end up resorting to using stripper because I realized that they had painted the trim, which has a lot of grooves, and scraping that out would have been quite difficult. And quite frankly, scraping all that paint off the top was getting to be quite a chore as well. And I didn't realize I had a container of this handy. If you never use it, citrus strip, it smells like oranges. I'm not sure exactly what it's made out of, but it will take anything off. Polyurethane, enamel, latex, lacquer, shellac. So I've been very careful as I'm working near other cabinets down here to not slop any over or have any drips. I also don't want to run down the sides. So I've been working in small areas, starting in the middle and going out and using a brush and just putting on a thin layer. Normally you'd glop this on pretty thick, but I've been doing it in multiple passes with just a light coat each time, so minimize any runs or drips or any of that. And I'm just about done. Whatever paint they used, within minutes it curls up and comes right off. The underlying lacquer takes a little bit longer, but I'm just about done. And I can see how deteriorated the original finish was. And I get why they did what they did. Traditional woodworking, lacquers and whatnot, most stores don't carry that kind of stuff. And I'm very glad they did, because it did a fantastic job of protecting this. This veneer is flawless. Not a single chip, gouge, chip, no lifting, no bubbles. This was well worth it. Working on the trim a bit, using a knife to get down into the grooves and get the goo out. Now, if you're wondering why did they make it so dark, why did they put on so thick a layer of it, partly that's probably just what people were used to, or that's what they wanted, but also because they use secondary wood. I'm sure this is not solid mahogany. Same with the trim here. But if you make it dark, you can make the colors match. Versus if you clear coat it after stripping and you have different species of wood, they're not going to match. So that generally is why they would do that. I think the rest of it is good enough. I'll do the usual Gojo, Howard's, restore finish kind of thing, touch up any areas if I need to. Oh yeah, it is bad along the base, which is a very common issue. Of course, that's where it gets the most abuse. Ideally, this speaker board will come off, which will allow me to work around here more readily. But really, the main thing I think I want to do to this is this metal ring around the picture tube and the safety glass, which, by the way, is bubbled out. It'll probably be a rather expensive piece of glass to replace. It had a metallic paint finish on it. It's flaked off. Luckily, I don't think they'll be too hard to replicate. If it was some kind of tinted, or if it was plated or something, that would be a whole nother story. But I think this is probably cast aluminum, and it's been painted with like an antique metallic brass. I think I can get something pretty darn close to this today. So that'll be, well, I mean, it'll still be a bit of a challenge. I need to get this out, get the glass out of it, and do a good job painting it with no runs or anything. But at least I've got a path to follow to attempt to do it. Alrighty, using Mohawk mahogany grain filler, slopped a bunch on, worked it in pretty good. It's starting to set up. So over the next several hours, I'll be working my way around, making sure I get everything filled in and working off the excess. It'll start getting gooier and gooier and as it sets up. Well, first off, it's been in low 90s with moderate humidity, so I've been cramming in as much painting, refinishing, touch-up stuff as I can, because the stuff just dries so much faster. So it's an RCA set. If you've been watching my videos, which will look familiar, it's basically done. And this guy, as soon as I worked on the grain filler, so it looked pretty good, I put it outside, because it does outgas a bit. It's an oil-based product. So I left it out there a few hours till basically the odor was barely noticeable and brought it back in. So I'm quite happy that worked out really well. Mohawk grain filler Works really well. In the past, I've used other manufacturers, but recently I switched to Mohawk, and good stuff, good stuff. A little goes a long way. I used maybe a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons to do that whole top. Now, a bad thing, once I got it out in the light and took a good look at this cabinet, I realized something. So I've been saying the sides look pretty dark, because I've been looking down from the top, kind of this way. When they painted the top and did some of the trim, they slopped some paint on the sides. Not real happy about that. I think with this lighting you guys can see that it's kind of just like they just took a brush and just slopped some on. Totally no rhyme or reason, not uniform, which puts me in a shitty position. I don't want to strip this whole cabinet. I could, but I have to charge the owner a lot more. We didn't really factor refinishing the cabinet into the budget for this project. I did the top mainly because I couldn't stand it because it was so badly done. But to do the whole cabinet, that's a lot of work. I'd have to order a product. Just so you know, high quality lacquer spray can, when you factor in sales tax and shippings, it's got to go over your ground and all that. You're talking like $15+ a can. And grain filler, shellac, whatever. I mean, maybe $100 in materials. Then all the time to sand it and strip it and all that stuff too. So what I'm hoping I can do on the sides, because it looks like they're in fine condition otherwise, I mean, yeah, it's a little dirty, some flecks here and there, can I get this off with some careful scraping or sanding and leave the original color, and then I'll clear coat over it. That's what I want to try to do. If my chemistry with strippers was better, I don't know if there's something that could take off what I think is enamel paint but not hurt lacquer. It seems unlikely. So I don't really think that's an option. So I think it's just, but again, time, labor. But I really, really like this set. I think out of his whole collection of sets I've been doing, this is my favorite, so I really want to make it as nice as I can within reason. So much nicer to work outside when the weather cooperates. Get a much better idea of what the color actually looks like and where the defects are. So after the grain filler's set up, or now that it's set up, I'm lightly sanding with 400 grit to get out some of the excess, like I see I haven't done here yet. You want it to look more like that. And you're probably thinking that still looks pretty muddy and crummy. Well, I'm going to hit it with some shellac in a moment. It will look much better and close to what the final product's going to look like. If I'm not too happy with the color, I can always use some toner lacquer to correct it if need to, or wipe on another coat of stain, but I think we're doing pretty good. Well, that made quite a difference. Now I'm thinking I probably will want to go over it with some brown mahogany toner to darken it a little. And yeah, it's still a little bit lighter in here. It's something I noticed when I stripped it, that for some reason, probably from being exposed, the deteriorated finish, a little bit lighter down in here. I can try to correct that. Maybe wipe a little stain down in here. But otherwise, I think that's one heck of a lot better than that slapped on brown paint. Okay, now the top is pretty much done. Let's take a look at the sides. It is worse than I realized. It looks like somebody just dipped a brush into paint and randomly smacked it around the side of the cabinet. Why is there paint here and here? Alright, so I'm going to get some 400 grit or 220 grit sandpaper and try to scuff that off, scrape it off, keep the underlying finish, clear coat over it, and make this thing presentable. So the base, so this is mahogany veneer, brown mahogany toner, brownish reddish mahogany toner. This is solid wood that has some type of more opaque brown on it. It's pretty bad, and in the front it's really bad. So I think my goal is to retain the sides and then mask this off, and I will likely just redo the entire bottom all around the sides. the two sides in the front. Luckily, that paint came off really easily. It's 400 grit sandpaper. Came right off, and the finish underneath is in really nice condition. In addition to getting the paint off, removed any light surface alligatoring. There are a few scratches, but otherwise, yeah. So I'm just going to lightly spray it. Ultra classic brown mahogany, same stuff I used on top to get a better color match, and then a couple passes with some semi-gloss lacquer, and that'll be it for this side. Other side has hardly any paint on it at all, so should be able to knock out both sides real quick. Finally, some decent weather on the weekend. Geez, we had violent storms last weekend into the early part of the week. It's been really hot and humid the last couple weeks, so that's why I was doing some work inside. Even today, it's 75% humidity, but so far no trouble. So I got a comment from somebody just a little while ago asking about if I had any trouble with blush when I spray lacquer on a humid day. Blush meaning moisture gets trapped in a lacquer, it makes a cloudy area. So what happens is lacquer, it has acetone in it that's what lacquer thinner is. And if you ever used it before, gotten it on your hands, when it evaporates, your hands feel cool. Yeah, because it evaporates so quickly, it cools down the surface that it's on, which will cause moisture from the air to condense on it, and it gets trapped inside the lacquer, and you get cloudiness. It's from moisture being trapped in it. I have not. Now, and I assume it's because of the spraying technique, and also I've been keeping the stuff inside where I have a dehumidifier. So the wood itself has a pretty low humidity, but sure, it's humid outside. I do light passes. I'm not spraying the stuff on really heavy or doing multiple heavy passes, just doing a few light passes. I think that's really what it comes down to. Now, if you do get blush, they do have products, blush remover, retarder, whatever. I think, so there's a couple products. One, you spray on along with the lacquer and it slows down the evaporation process to avoid it in the first place. The other is if you've got it, you spray it on, and I think what it does is it's basically you're putting more solvents on it and evaporates it and allows the moisture to escape, and then it settles back down. I strongly recommend you that surface horizontal if you're going to use that, because if it's vertical and you spray it on, you can get runs from the stuff melting. Anyways, let's get back to this. So here's the side I just sprayed. So yeah, here's where the scratches are, and there's brown paint down in that groove. I just left it. It's no big deal. There is a little bit of a defect here, and that's what happens when you have contamination in the wood and you spray lacquer over it. It doesn't want to stick to it. Who knows what kind of gunk is on there. I could have sprayed some shellac or other type sealer before I put on the lacquer, but I was hoping it would come out well, and it did everywhere else. Just that one little area, I'll try to touch that up. A little bit of brown paint still left up here. I really haven't done much with this area yet, the hardwood. I did get the glass front out and the bezel around it. I still need to remove these. I've just been careful not to spray on the front. But what I want to do right now is get the other side done. So I haven't done anything to this side yet, but you can see there's really no paint on it. So what I'm going to do is put the cabinet down so I can work on this, and I got my 400 grit sandpaper. So same deal, lightly sand it, ultra classic brown mahogany toner lacquer, and then the semi-gloss. And then I'll work on the front. Ideally I want to remove the grill cloth and the controls and the logo. Alright, that should be good enough. A little more here. Don't worry about getting every little last trace of the old finish off, so it doesn't melt into the new stuff. Alright, so I'm going to put the brown right over it. And I don't want to get overspray on the front particularly, so I'm going to spray on this side so the mist goes that way. Obviously if it's windy that's going to be a problem. Kind of timing it when there's a lull in the field. See, there's some areas that didn't get too well because the wind caught it. So I just want to do at least 2 passes to try to even out the color of any spots you might have missed. I'll just do a little of this. Okay, waited about 5 minutes. I'm going to go with the semi-gloss. Six to 8 inches because it's a little windy. I don't want to spread too far. Gotta keep the can moving. Always do a couple passes, try to stagger them, wait for the wind to die down. Sometimes I'll spray in the garage with the overhead door open. Yeah. Even so, fumes can get a little intense in there, so I prefer doing it like this. Oh, wait a minute, and I'll do another final pass. While we wait, time for belly rubs. And there we go. Less than 10 minutes later, dry to the touch. That's why they use lacquer even on a humid day. It sets up so fast and it looks nice. Back to working on the cabinet now. The main thing left is to work around the bottom, so I flipped it upside down and was happy to see that by removing 8 screws, the whole speaker board comes out. And as someone online pointed out to me, the mystery of the dial lights and the RCA connector on the back of the chassis that had me confused, that goes to this, which I think is momentary. So I think the idea is if you need illumination to change the channels, you push this button. As soon as you let go, they go back out. So it's not a toggle. In other words, it's only on while that's pushed in. Anyways, with that out of the way, I can definitely go to town on this. So, see, it's badly deteriorated. This is a bit beyond just touching up. There is no finish in these lighter areas at all. And then, yeah. So if I was to overspray this, the stuff that has finished would just get darker, and the lighter areas would get a little bit darker, and it wouldn't look so good. So, what do I want to do? First off, I'm going to remove all of the hardware, which isn't too bad after a little examination. So take out some small Phillips screws, and these hinged control panels come right off. Same with the prism. This, I think, is just press fit on. So there's that. And to hold these hinged doors in the closed positions, they just drove a wood screw in, and it snaps into this. Now, for some reason, this one has rivets on it. This one does not, but they look. Well, actually, I don't know. I was gonna say I don't think those. Said they look pretty good in that they are factory, but no, I'm not so sure. I think that is a really old repair. Fairly well done. All right, so same deal on this side. The logo, it looks like it's held in with 2 small nails. I'll carefully pry those out and then remove this switch. Looks like it got kind of whacked. It's in there at a goofy angle, so I can take care of that while I'm at it. All right, so with all that stuff out of the way, I'll be able to do the area all around the screen, which is in pretty good shape. Decals are still here. Usual light sanding and clear coat with fresh lacquer over that. This vertical I'll touch up a little bit with some gel stain, I think here along there, which will basically take care of everything except for this. And down here I'm just going to do the best I can with stains or toner lacquer to clean it up, and then again semi-gloss lacquer over that, and same with the bottom on the sides, which leaves this top edge. For that, I'll mask off the cabinet, spray that with toner lacquer until everything has a pretty good color match, and that should be that. Then we can start putting this back together. Picture tube is over here. I posted a photo online. So, a little taste of progress here. That is the first metal cone picture tube, the 16AP4 with 54-degree deflection angle, very long. Then we have this guy, which I believe is 70 degrees, if I remember right, which is 16EP4 that we use in the Zenith. Then there's a 16GP4, which I believe is 90 degrees, and that is the last before they actually did make one or two rectangular metal picture tubes. When I say metal, it's the painted part that's metal. The rest is all glass, and there's just a glass to metal seam right there. And why are these colors? It's not so you can tell what size they are or anything. It means they're rebuilds. Simple as that. And that is a 19AP4. The largest they ever made was a 30 BP4 using the Dumont Royal Sovereign. Oh, well, how can I leave this out? Made by Roland, which Zenith eventually took a controlling interest in. That is the first generation glass rectangular picture tube where the sides are super flat, and they're quite heavy because they used rather thick glass. A year or two later, they went from the even numbers. This is a 16-inch, and there was a 14-inch, and there was a 20-inch. A year or two later, they switched to the odd numbers, 17, 19, 21, and they rounded off the sides a bit, which let them use thinner glass, and that was the norm for many years. Oops. Doggos. Back outside with the cabinet. What a difference a couple weeks make. Went from mid-90s to low 70s, lower humidity, so I'm able to spray outside again. Now, it's not much fun, but I want to paint this trim, so I had to mask off all the areas around. I'm going to be spraying kind of down at an angle like this. I do not want to get any on the top, and I figure that's enough protection on the sides. Tone finish toner as opposed to ultra classic toner. This has more pigment in it. Not completely opaque, but a lot more opaque. So make this a nice dark color. When I stripped this, I did not remove all the traces from the crevices, and that was intentional. And if you watch my Radiola 60 restoration series, you will know why. And the reason why is when you spray this toner and it comes out in a conical spray and it hits this, it hits the high points first, and it's really tough to get it into these crevices. So what happened when I completely stripped something and sprayed it is it ended up being light in the recesses where you want it to actually be a little bit darker, ideally. So I left darkness in there. It was the tip. If you have something that's completely stripped, I suggest you take a brush or a marker, touch a marker or something before you spray on the toner and darken those crevices, because it's really tough to get the toner. It does not want to get down in there, and it hits these high points and sticks there. All right, so I'll do a couple passes on this, which leaves the front. Well, that worked out better than I expected. So much so I got bold and I freehand touched up around the bottom. And I think it turned out quite nice. When it's a little bit brighter out tomorrow, I'll take a closer look. I do want to touch up a few more spots where it got a little nicked at some point in the past here and there, but otherwise Yeah, just do a final pass with some semi-gloss. Of course, I could take all this off when I do that, and I think we're done. There we go. Not perfect, but I wasn't seeking perfection. I just wanted it to look a lot better. So now, clear coat. My dog is going insane because the air and water show is this weekend and a lot of jets flying over, so he is beside himself with anxiety. It's alright, Jupes. And here we go with the full-size CRT. I had a fight with the ion trap magnet a bit and let it warm up for a while. It seemed a little tired at first. It was a little overdriven. Looked kind of more like that. But after playing a few minutes, things settled down. So this is in full porthole mode. If you flip the switch, cuts the height a bit and you're closer to 4:3 aspect ratio. So really up to the viewer. Do you want to have maximum screen inches of viewing area with people stretched a bit, or a little more realistic? It's so deceptive being around this thing because there's no ozone, there's no crackle. I don't have the hairs on my arm aren't standing out, probably because it's kind of humid. But if I if I brush into that, it's 15,000 volts. Wham! Man, so I have to keep reminding myself as I'm reaching around, adjusting things. Keep one hand in my back pocket and keep a healthy distance away from things as much as possible. It's so weird compared to the glass CRTs where you've got some thickness up front and you can see the image from the other side. This is so weird. It seems magical, like a looking glass or something. Imagine if you were a kid and you saw this, it would seem so much more magical than a conventional glass CRT. It's just like a metal cone with an image just appearing at the end. All right. Now that the set's working, switching my attention back to the cabinet for a bit, I popped the safety glass out of the bezel, which is cast aluminum, lightly sanded, primered, and painted it. I used antique brass, which at the time seemed like a good idea, but it's a little too bright. Here's what the controls doors look like. So I could paint these to match that. I mean, it's not horrible by any means, but I'm going to run back to the hardware store as soon as I get a chance and then get something closer to that. They do have an oil rub bronze, but in the photos online it looks really, really dark. So I got to see this stuff in person, in other words. So, well, there is the aged copper. Still not quite what I'm going for, but it's a lot better than that aged brass. I think we go with this. So I will clean up these and paint them the same color. There's some crud on some of them, so that should be the last thing we need to do. Oh, wait, no, there is one other development. Speaker, a big old honkin' permanent magnet speaker. Which we haven't tried yet, so we got to make sure that works. But the grill cloth is also a bit distressed, so you can see the speaker is right here. There's nothing behind this, and clearly it's been pushed in, and the fibers on the grill cloth got torn and messed up. Well, somebody I posted on Video Karma, and somebody helpfully sent me a link to some guitar amp grill cloth for a Vox amp that's pretty darn close. So I ordered some up, should be here in a few days. I'll peel this off, spray on some adhesive, and give it a shot. Not my favorite thing to do, but I'll give it a try. Alrighty, everything has been painted, polished, cleaned, etc. Let's put it all back together. While working on this, I realized one of the things that makes it so unique is, aside from just being a giant circle porthole set, the safety glass is actually, it's a bubble, it's curved, it's spherical. I'm pretty sure every set that I've ever worked on had a completely flat safety glass. So not only is it round, but it actually protrudes, which is extra cool. So we got the chassis ready to go. First, let's reattach all the hardware. I think we should start out by redoing this switch and clean that knob up too. So none of this is attached. I just put it here just to see how it would look. In case anyone was wondering, my top 3 least favorite things to do in restoration would be dial stringing, speaker reconing, and grill cloth installation, which is what we are going to try doing here. At least I think I'm getting better at it. And a big thing that helps is spray adhesive. In the past I just try to smear glue on there, but I saw that tip online. Another thing that helps a lot is to prepare the grill cloth and stretch it out on the reverse, tack it in place, and spray the glue onto this and then set that onto this. Now you might be thinking, hey, this is going to go on this way, right? No, the pattern on the original was going this way. I was lucky to get this grill cloth that is sized just to meet. Now we do have some slop too. The way this gets mounted in the cabinet, about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch, at least on the sides, it gets covered up by the cabinet trim, so we'll be a little sloppy there. But yeah, that's the plan. We have some slight folds in there. Doesn't look too bad on this side though, but I should probably iron that a little first. So I'll get a steam iron going. Also, this lays really flat. I don't think stretching is going to be as much of an issue as I've had in the past with smaller, lighter weight stuff. I'm not sure what this is made out of. Seems a little synthetic-y. Maybe it's nylon. But what I will do is I will get some thumbtacks, so that's why I'm on this cork board, so I can iron it, get it taut, spray this, and then set this down. And again, I think we're really lucky that it's laying rather flat, and the pattern is pretty simple. And what I can do to see if I'm getting it right is to look at these diamonds along the edge here and make sure there's an even space all down the way. So I mean, like as it is right now, I think this would be fine except for the wrinkles, so we gotta get the wrinkles out. Alrighty, ironed it and then used some spray starch, took some thumbtacks and stretched it enough to make it taut but not distort the pattern. I'm going to hit this board with some spray 77 outside and wait till it becomes aggressively tacky, is what the can says. And we're going to carefully eyeball it, press it down, put some weight on it, and wait. There we go. I think we did alright with lining up the pattern, just going by. It's peeking out at the top. Looks like pretty uniform gap there. So wait, and I don't know, I'll let it sit for half an hour or so and then reveal the results. And of course trim off the excess. Alright, let's see how we did. That adhered really well. I was wondering what these holes were at first, but that's the screw heads for where the speaker mounts on the other side. Nothing we can do about that. But yeah, I'm happy with that. And there we go. Bad lighting, the sun has gone down. I'll get some more footage tomorrow in daylight, but yeah, that worked out real nice. Looks great. So, the last thing to do is install the power supply chassis. I put the heat shield back on. I found this piece of metal and the leftover parts from this set. I couldn't remember what went there. That's where the heat shield goes. Pop that on the bottom of the cabinet and hope and pray that the set still works. And here it is. in some daylight with the knobs cleaned and installed. Maybe someday we can get the missing volume knob. The next early TV swap meet is in a few weeks, so who knows? Who knows? Very, very cool set. And here's the switch to make the picture bigger or smaller. And here's the push button that'll make the dial lights light up. So I need to get the power supply chassis up here and mount it on shock mounts and power this set back up. Oh, so close, but there's always a million little details. For example, trying to reinstall the power supply. Well, it came on shock mounts, one of which was missing. So I was digging through my stash of rubber mounts and came up with a couple washers, and if I stack up two of them, it's exactly the same thickness as an original. So we'll go with that. And missing one of the bolts, and one of them was crazy long for some reason. I think I will dig through and find three nice matching vintagey bolts to secure this, like maybe these guys. That's why I save everything. Sure, you can get new ones too, but I like to use the vintage ones when I can. And actually there are differences sometimes. In particular, check out the end of this. The threading does not go all the way to the end. Makes it just a little bit easier to get this seated in properly versus one where the thread does go all the way to the end. Minor, but a nice touch that just don't do anymore. Oh man, I am so glad that it is still working. I gotta do a little bit of work though. The vertical linearity's off a tad. Now also notice that there are dashes across the top. That is closed caption, station ID, etc. info. And turn the sound down. Alright, so that's just an unfortunate reality of modern programming, is that's where they put in that closed caption info, station info, channel guide info. They hide it in the vertical refresh interval, but in a porthole set, when you're in letterboxed or normal viewing mode, you see it. So if it was me, I'd probably be very inclined to run it in porthole mode. But as we'll see when we get back out of these commercials and get to 4.3 formatting, the problem with that is you really lose the corners. I gotta do a little bit of work on the screen geometry too. Nice thing about these sets is all the controls are in front. Vertical, horizontal centering, width, height, linearity. So you can do it all. You don't have to, considering how set this deep as you would have to use a mirror if you were going to try to set this up by yourself. Here we go. Here's some 4.3 programming. So you can watch it like this, which is the right aspect ratio, or like this, but then you're really losing all the corners and everybody is stretched out a bit vertically. But that's, I mean, yeah, it's a marketing gimmick, so they could say they have the most viewable screen inches of anybody, but downside is you're missing some of the picture. And yeah, we got some refresh lines. You can adjust the contrast and brightness and get rid of those. There we go. So picture two, no, it's not new, but it's certainly watchable, especially in a dim room. It's in the afternoon. We got light coming through the window. Don't have any blinds or curtains on it, and it's perfectly watchable. In a dimmer room, it would be very, very watchable. Just a little better. And on the other side, we get the contrast setting. So we order contrast setting number 2 for whatever value that might have. It's not the volume, it's the contrast level. Here's one last look at the setup all back together and playing. So that prism, a light up indicator. Oh, I'll leave this open so we can see. So porthole mode, and normal mode. So that is going to be it. That was quite a project in the making. And a rather rare set. This is the only porthole set like this I've ever had the pleasure of working on. Yeah, sure, I worked on a tabletop one not too long ago, but to me this is the classic, full-on, big. Yeah, there is a 19-inch version. This is the 16, but I think it's a really good size. I like the proportions of this set. And I do have my own, which is also a 16. Mine has doors on it, but I think this has a lot more curb appeal to it. I'm a little bit jealous. That's going to be it for now. Thanks for watching.